welcome back to my channel. My name is Kuyate Nora, your favorite virtual castmate, and today I'm going to be sharing the 5 things that I learned from Chadwick Boseman's legacy. But before I get into that, if you haven't already joined the cast, make sure that you click the subscribe button as well as the bell notification so that you know whenever I upload. Also, be sure to comment down below so that we can kind of have a conversation about your thoughts on my video. Without further ado, let's get started. So when I first learned about Chadwick Boseman's passing, I was actually very upset. There are very few people who have the capacity of playing multiple roles within a lifetime that are iconic, and I think that seeing him play the role of James Brown, playing Jackie Robinson, and then doing Black Panther, I mean, he had such an essence to him that I really appreciated, and it hit home for me that his life was condensed. Even though he had done so much work, in my mind I was thinking like, he probably had so much more in him, right, that I was anticipating to see, and it really hit a nerve that I wasn't expecting to experience. And I am praying for his wife and his family. I'm keeping them in my prayers to this day, because there's nothing like losing not just a person but someone who you know just like had something special to share. Everyone has something special to share. I think it's different when you share that specific person with the world. So obviously I didn't know him personally, but I really did respect the way that he respected his craft of acting, which leads me to point number 1. The first thing that I learned from Chadwick Boseman was the idea of choosing the work that aligns with your legacy. Now, he did an interview where he spoke about how he told his agents, I'm not playing certain types of roles. And I think that there's this dilemma being a Black actor saying, you know, someone might offer you a part, but it doesn't necessarily fit the vision of how you see yourself in front of the camera or on stage. It's difficult to make those decisions because you're thinking, well, if I tell my agent or manager that I don't want to pick this role and I'm, you know, stuck in this in-between life and I'm not getting work, will I get dropped? What would that mean for me? You know, but he made a deliberate choice to say, I don't want these specific types of roles to be attached to who I am. And it's a choice that is difficult, but he made it. And I don't know why he essentially did it, but I think that it's very important to pay attention to the fact that regardless of why he did it, he stuck with it. And now we are left with the product of his decision. And I appreciate that. And I think moving forward, I know that I plan being more intentional with the type of work that I accept, because you don't have to accept every role that comes your way. And I think that that fear of not being able to be a part of certain types of projects, we feel like we have to grab everything, and that's not necessarily true. What is meant for you is right for you, and you have to have discernment when picking what you want to be a part of. The second thing was to embrace your privacy. Now, like the rest of the world, his publicist announcing that he passed away was shocking, right? How did he pass away? Especially if it wasn't from COVID, like what, he was sick? He chose not to disclose the fact that he was battling with cancer. And I think that sometimes we feel like because we're expected to be on social media that we have to share every component of our life, and we just don't have to. So I think that idea of knowing it's okay to have parts of our lives that are private is key to living a happy life. I truly believe that he was content with the way that he lived his life off camera when he got on camera. We're in this age where we feel like in order to get ahead, we have to exploit ourselves. And that's not necessarily true, depending on what type of success you would like to gain. And I think that if you want to lean towards the type of success that he led and that he had, then it's imperative for your own personal peace to make sure that you understand that there are parts of your life that is acceptable for you to hold sacred to yourself. I would rather have peace in my life than cacophony. Number 3, what do your 24 hours look like? Now, this is something that time is everything. Now, he died very young in my opinion. And I think that idea of trying to figure out, okay, if I died at the same time as Chadwick Boseman, will I be content at the end of my life knowing that I utilized my time properly? That's a legitimate question. How do you feel like you're using your 24 hours? Do you spend your time watching other people work towards their success while you watch them and critique it, or you watch them and say, oh my gosh, I wish? Or are you someone who says, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for this person's success? Or you do that on your break and then you go and you continue working on what you want. How you use your 24 hours is so key to working towards your definition of success. And I think too often we spend a lot of time analyzing how someone else is using their 24 hours, and we lack the ability and the accountability of saying, well, what am I doing for myself with 24 hours? Beyonce also has 24 hours, right? Michael Jackson also had 24 hours. The people that you see, you know, in front or in the news or celebrity, everyone has 24 hours. Now, I know that there are a lot of, you know, life situations that can make the time in your 24 hours a bit harder to navigate than other people. Don't get me wrong. With what you have, you can do great things. It is possible. There are people who literally work from nothing and create everything. There's so many stories like that. And you don't have to necessarily recreate how they did theirs, but it's just showing you that it is possible. Now, what you want will take time to get there. It's not like you just wake up and say, well, boom, like you just woke up and like you fell into it. It takes time, which leads me to why I mention this. What are you doing with your time? Are you reading? Are you singing? Are you reaching out? A lot of times people are also willing to do favors for you. So if money is the issue with, you know, feeling like, oh, I'm not singing because I can't afford voice lessons, or I'm not acting because I can't take lessons, I don't have the money for it. Find a friend, you know, work with someone, send them a text and say, hey, I don't necessarily have the money, but maybe I can barter. Is there something I can do so that, you know, I can compensate you for the time that you're using to help me? If you use the module of using 8 hours in a day, what can you do within 8 hours? If you compare it to, you know, how much time you use for leisure, you know, what is the time that you allot to that versus the time that you work? It should be balanced. I'm not saying like you have to grind 20 hours a day. I think that that's unhealthy. But what I do think is that we need to be able to say, okay, there are 24 hours in a day. In order to get to where I want to go, I need to use at least 5 hours of the day dedicated to this. And then the other time, I need to sit and, you know, find the space that I need to get to in order to interpret what I'm learning, right? Because it's not just about learning, it's about making sure you're retaining the information, and that's possible within 24 hours. Number 4, health is the ultimate wealth. When it comes to health, it is so important to us actors. A lot of us are in positions where you're working and you may not have the same benefits as some of your friends who are not in theater, who are working regular jobs, and making sure that you are making decisions to keep your body in its optimum healthy space is key. Now, he did not choose to get cancer. He unfortunately was chosen by life, and it's something that we don't ever know, right? But in my mind, I'm just like, dang, why him? But it made me think, with the way that I have personally been, you know, treating my body during COVID. Yes, some of it is justified because it was a very rough time for me personally, adjusting to not being able to audition and work in the manner that I would like, right? But then there's also that personal responsibility to treat my body with respect, and understanding that when I don't hydrate properly, when I'm overeating sugar, when I'm overeating categories of like food categories that I know do not agree with my body, that is me not respecting myself, and me knowing that that is going to hinder me from being able to pursue my career without having any additional issues. That is something that for me is important, because I want to do this for as long as I can. I don't plan on retiring because it takes way too long to break into the industry, and I'm not gonna plan for my exit if I don't have to. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Anybody who knows me personally knows that I always say that. It just snapped me into a place where I felt like I needed to say that's a wake-up call. I need to make sure that I do my part in treating my body well. And lastly, let your craft speak to the masses. What you say, the message that you want to share, should be the voice that is heard the loudest. With us having to be on social media, navigating it, knowing what to say, knowing what not to say, knowing when to chime into people's business, knowing when to stay silent, you know, it is imperative as an actor on a mission to know where your voice belongs, and understanding that what you say will go very far and it can travel far. Just seeing from the work he did on stage, the work he did off stage, how he spoke about the importance of the election, the way he spoke about social justice, the way that he portrayed specific characters on stage but still embodied parts of that in his real life, spoke so high of him. It allowed people like me to see a black man in a statuesque form. It's very different from how media likes to portray black men, and for me that just meant so much because it showed me that I have the power and the capacity to develop the type of image that I would like to share. Now, of course, like sometimes people are like, well, that's a facade, like obviously you can have a different life, and yes, that's true. But I can control what I want you to see, and I think that's the thing, you know. You can only fake but so much, and that's one of the things that's very personal to me in terms of, you know, saying what needs to be said. And there's certain things that, you know, in my personal life that make me smile because I know for a fact that that's something that I've been working on my own, in terms of really taking an extra second to kind of think, does this need to be said? Is it really that deep? Is it important? You know, versus really taking the time to say, this is what needs to be said, and it has to be said at this moment. Somebody needs to hear it. That is so key, because, you know, even me sharing this video, down the line, if someone finds this and it's like some 15-year-old or some 10-year-old finds it and they're like, oh my gosh, like I needed to hear this, and then they come up to me after a show and they're like, oh my god, I saw you, I would be so elated because I'm like, oh wow, like I made that so long ago, but it touched you in this moment. I'm appreciative. I'm glad that I did that because I grew up. I used to be reckless when I was younger. Like whatever I thought of, it came out of my mouth. It didn't matter what it was. I was very, very quick mouth. But I learned, and I had to learn over time, like that's not the type of person that I want to be. Now I'm still spunky, like don't get me wrong. Like of course, like I always have something to say, but it's just like, it's not always good to be ready to just pop off. I just don't think, just for your own peace of mind, it's not good to be like that. And I had to work on myself to get to a place where I feel like, no, I don't walk around and it's just like kumbaya, like that's just how I am all the time. But I feel like I exert more peace in myself because I am at peace. There are things that even with the insecurities that I have, or the uncertainty of my career, like even with knowing all those things that are going on, I'm still at peace because I'm okay with knowing that I don't know what's going to happen next. And I can sit and share parts of myself that still speak louder and still speak positivity and light into the world for somebody. And if that's what someone associates with me, then that's the legacy that I want to put out. I know what I want to say. I know when I should say it, and I do it because I know that that is a part of what I want to add to the world. I don't want to be associated with anything else but that. So that concludes everything that I wanted to share today about what I learned from Chadwick Boseman's legacy. Share your comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I know this is very different, but this was really weighing on my spirit, and I'm so glad that I'm in a place where I could have shared it, because I tried to make this like right after it happened and it just did not go well. I wish you all well. Thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't already, please make sure to click the red button, subscribe, click the bell notification button, description, and I will see you in the next show. Bye.
Honey, baby, sweet, you know I've been the reason you need.